Like, share, and comment now to unlock exclusive content. Don't miss out on the action.
Hello everyone. I'm Eric, the workplace safety guy. I once watched a 4,000-kilogram machine crush a man's skull against a steel rack in less than 1.4 seconds. 1.4 seconds. The time it takes you to take one single deep breath. And the worst part? It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a rookie's mistake. It wasn't a bizarre mechanical failure. It happened because someone, an experienced professional with over 10 years of operation, decided they could ignore one single detail. Just one detail. And that decision cost him his life before he could even scream. Today, I'm going to tell you what that man did. I'm going to show you why this still happens every single day in distribution centers and factories across America and around the world. And I'm going to explain from the ground up the system that U.S. safety regulations created specifically to prevent this kind of tragedy from repeating in front of your eyes. A system based on the OSHA 1910-178 standard. And before you think, oh, that's not my problem, I don't drive forklifts. Listen to what I have to say. Because if you walk down a grocery store aisle, if you work in an office near a warehouse, or if you simply care about going home in one piece at the end of the day, this video is the life insurance you didn't know you needed. I remember exactly where I was when I truly understood what a forklift represents. It wasn't in a boring training room with slides. It wasn't watching a safety video from the 80s. It was in a distribution center in Ohio, on a completely ordinary day, when I saw what the silence of an electric machine could do. The sound wasn't an engine. It was the sound of metal bending under pressure and the scream of someone who realized, too late, that the stability triangle had been broken. At that moment, my brain froze, because my instinct screamed before I even processed what was happening. And there I understood something that no manual had ever truly taught me. Physics does not forgive. It doesn't respect your hierarchy, it doesn't respect your experience, and it certainly doesn't respect your urgency to hit the shift's production floor. It just acts. And when it acts on the human body, the result is always the same: amputation, total crushing, or the end of the line. Let me ask you a direct question. Would you trust your life to an imaginary triangle? Most people would say no. But every forklift operator in America does exactly that every day, often without knowing it. When you get into a car, you have 4 wide points of support. If you take a turn fast, the car leans, but it rarely flips. A forklift doesn't work like that. It's a high-performance seesaw. And the balance of that seesaw is the only thing separating a productive shift from an industrial crime scene. Do you know what's scarier? Most people think a forklift is just a car that carries things. Wrong. It's a rear-steer vehicle with a center of gravity that moves like a frantic pendulum. When you raise a 2,000-kilogram load 6 meters into the air, you've just turned your machine into an unstable tower ready to fall at the slightest sign of wind or an uneven floor. This is where OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, comes in. The American federal agency that isn't here to give advice, but to enforce the law. And the 1910-178 law is written in the blood of those who didn't follow it. Let me tell you about a guy I'll call Miller. Miller was the best operator at an auto parts warehouse in Illinois. 17 years on the job. He could place a pallet on the top rack of the pallet jack with his eyes closed. He was fast. He was the guy supervisors called when the load was running late. On a Tuesday afternoon, Miller was in a hurry. He had a truck waiting at the dock, and the driver was honking. Miller grabbed a heavy pallet, raised the load while still making a turn, the number one mistake in any manual, and the stability triangle simply vanished. The forklift tipped sideways. Miller's instinct was to jump out. The worst mistake of his life. The machine's protective structure, weighing tons, fell exactly across his chest. He didn't stand a chance. What disturbed me about this case wasn't the death itself, but the fact that Miller knew the standard. He taught the standard. But he succumbed to safety's greatest enemy, familiarity. He thought he knew the machine. He forgot the machine didn't know him. OSHA estimates that 70% of all forklift accidents in the United States could be prevented if the 1910-178 standard were followed to the letter. 70%. That means 7 out of 10 deaths are, in fact, documented negligence. Now, pay attention here, because I'm going to take you deep down the rabbit hole. The American standard divides these machines into 7 classes. From electric narrow-aisle trucks to diesel-powered monsters for rough terrain. And each one requires specific training. You can't just know how to drive one and think you know them all. It's like saying because you ride a bike, you know how to fly a supersonic jet. The forces involved are different. The visibility is different. The response time is different. And the most critical point of any warehouse in America is the loading docks. The war zone. That's where the internal factory world meets the external world of tired truck drivers and delivery pressures. Did you know one of the most common accidents is trailer creep? It's when the forklift enters and exits the trailer so many times that the vibration makes the truck slowly pull away from the dock. If the driver didn't chock the wheels, as required by standard 1910 178K, there comes a moment when the forklift tries to leave the trailer and finds only empty space. It falls into the gap. And those inside usually don't walk away. But it's not just about falling off docks or tipping over. There's an invisible killer no one tells you about: carbon monoxide. If you operate an internal combustion forklift in an enclosed environment without proper ventilation, you're breathing a poison that has no smell and no color. CO2 poisoning in American industries is a dark reality. The operator starts feeling a light headache, some dizziness. He thinks it's just shift fatigue. But what's happening is that his blood is stopping its transport of oxygen. His judgment fails. He makes a maneuver error. The accident happens. And in the autopsy, they find he was already dying on the inside before the impact ever happened. OSHA requires companies to perform daily inspections. Not once a week. Not whenever there's extra time. Every single shift, before turning the key. The operator needs to check the brakes, the horn, the hydraulic hoses, the mast chains. If there's an oil leak the size of a coin, the machine must be marked out of service. But what do we see in practice? Operators who sign the checklist without even looking at the machine because it was fine yesterday. Yesterday doesn't save anyone today. Yesterday is the past. Safety only exists in the present. Let me talk about pedestrians. 36% of forklift deaths involve people who were just walking. People who thought the operator had seen them. Never assume a forklift operator saw you. Between the mast towers and the load, the driver's visibility is fragmented. It's like trying to drive a car with newspapers taped to the windshield. That's why blue safety lights and red zones projected on the floor are so vital. They aren't Christmas decorations. They are the last line of defense between human body and 4,000 kilograms of moving metal. Now let's talk money, because in America, money talks. A serious OSHA violation can cost over $15,000 per infraction. If it's a willful violation, meaning the company knew the risk and ignored it, the amount jumps to over $160,000. But that's the least of it. The real cost of an accident includes lost productivity, insurance hikes, lawsuits, and most importantly, the destruction of team morale. No one wants to work in a place where the person next to them was mutilated. The 1910-178 standard also talks about the capacity plate. Every forklift has an identity. It tells you exactly how much you can carry and at what distance from the mast. If you add an attachment, like a paper roll clamp, without manufacturer authorization, you've changed the machine's physics. You've invalidated the capacity plate. You've turned the equipment into an unpredictable trap. And that's where disaster strikes. I want you to imagine the weight of an average forklift. It's about 9,000 pounds. An average car weighs 3,000. That means a small forklift is 3 times heavier than your SUV. It doesn't stop instantly. It doesn't turn like a sports car. It's a force of nature controlled by a human being who is often stressed, tired, and under pressure from a supervisor to unload the truck in record time. Let me tell you another true story. A warehouse in New Jersey. An operator named Sam. Sam was young, full of energy. He decided it would be funny to give a coworker a ride on the forklift forks. Just to get across the yard, he said. The coworker hopped on. Sam drove over a small pothole in the asphalt. The forklift jolted. The coworker fell. Sam couldn't stop in time. The result? An amputated leg and 2 destroyed careers. Sam was criminally prosecuted. The coworker never walked without help again. All because of 5 minutes of fun that violated the most basic rule of all. Forklifts are not for rides. They are lethal industrial tools. The American safety structure is based on 3 pillars: formal training, practical training, and performance evaluation. Reading the book isn't enough. You have to prove you can operate in the real world, between real racks, with real people around. And this evaluation must be repeated every 3 years, or whenever there's an accident or unsafe behavior. But you know what the problem is? Checkbox training. The kind where the instructor just signs the paper to say it was done. That paper doesn't stop the load from falling. That paper doesn't hold the machine on a ramp. Speaking of ramps, do you know which way the forks should point when you're on an incline? If you're loaded, the forks should point up the ramp, whether going up or down. Why? Because you want the weight of the load to help maintain traction and stability. If you go down a ramp loaded with the forks pointing down, the load could simply slide off, or worse, make the rear of the forklift lose contact with the ground. And without steering in the rear wheels, you're just a passenger in a high-speed accident. I want you to understand the gravity of battery recharging. Electric forklifts seem clean and safe, but the charging process releases hydrogen gas. Highly explosive. If the area isn't ventilated and someone lights a cigarette or there's a spark from a poorly maintained panel, the factory roof could come down. Standard 1910. 178G requires eye wash stations and emergency showers for a reason. Battery acid can blind you in seconds. Do you know what the hinge effect is? It's what happens when an operator tries to use the forklift to push another machine or a jammed pallet. The forklift wasn't made to push, it was made to lift. When you push, you place lateral stresses on the mast that it wasn't designed for. The mast can snap. And when a steel mast under tension breaks, the pieces fly like shrapnel from a grenade. I've investigated over 200 serious accident cases. And in almost all of them, there was a pattern: the culture of shortcuts. Someone thought they could use a broken pallet just one more time. Someone thought they didn't need the seatbelt because they were just going around the corner. By the way, the seatbelt on forklifts is to keep you inside the cab if it tips. In a car, the belt stops you from flying through the windshield. On a forklift, it stops you from being crushed by the machine itself. If the forklift tips, the safest place in the world is gripped to the steering wheel, inside the protective structure. If you try to jump, gravity will be faster than you. The machine will fall on top of you. It is pure, cruel physics. Elite American companies, the ones with 0 accidents, do something different. They don't just follow OSHA, they create a culture where any employee has the power to stop the operation if they see something wrong. If a pedestrian sees an operator without a seatbelt, they have a duty to stop them. If the operator sees a poorly stacked pallet, they refuse to lift it. This isn't insubordination. This is intelligence. This is survival. But it's not all tragedy. I've seen the system work. I saw a warehouse in Kentucky where, after a near-fatal scare, they implemented telemetry sensors on all machines. If an operator exceeded the speed or made a sharp turn, an alert sounded in the manager's office. In 6 months, incidents dropped 90%. Technology is here to help us, but it will never replace the operator's brain. The most important component of any forklift is sitting in the seat. It's human judgment. I want you to take 3 things from this video for the rest of your life. First, a forklift is a weight monster that doesn't forgive mistakes. Second, OSHA standards exist to protect your skin, not to get in the way of your work. Third, safety is a decision you make every second. It's not an event. It's a continuous process. If you work in a factory where forklifts race like they're on a Formula 1 track, where people don't wear seatbelts, where checklists are ignored, you are working on a countdown to disaster. And you have the right, and the duty, to demand change. Because the cost of speaking up is low, but the cost of silence could be your best friend's life. The United States is the industrial engine of the world, but that engine only works if the human parts are whole. Modern logistics demands speed, but speed without control is just a fancy name for chaos. At the end of the day, the success of an operation isn't measured by how many pallets were moved, but by how many people walked out the gate the same way they came in, walking, smiling, and ready to live tomorrow. Remember Miller. Remember Sam. Remember all those whose names aren't in the papers, but whose stories are etched into the scars of their families. Don't be the next story I have to tell. Respect the machine. Respect the standard. Respect your life. And now I ask you, are you going to keep looking at that silent electric forklift in the corner of your job the same way? Or did you finally realize you're standing in front of an industrial predator that only needs 1 second of distraction to strike? The choice is yours. But remember, in the safety game, there is no second place. Either you win and go home, or you lose everything. I'm Eric, and my mission is to ensure you aren't just another statistic. If this information opened your eyes, share it with someone you love. It could be the difference between a goodnight hug and a silent funeral. Stay safe. Operate with awareness. And never ever break the stability triangle. Industry doesn't stop. The machines keep turning. The sound of gears is the heartbeat of our economy. But that heart cannot beat at the expense of human hearts. Standard 1910. 178 is your shield. Use it. Don't let a supervisor's haste put out the light of your future. Because in the end, no load is worth a life. No revenue goal compensates for a father who doesn't come home. I've seen the worst that can happen. I've seen what negligence does to metal and flesh. And I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be that way. Safety is a choice. Choose to live. Choose to follow the procedure. Choose to be the professional everyone respects, not because you're the fastest, but because you're the one who never fails. Because failing at safety is a final failure. This video is just the beginning. There are thousands of pages of regulations, but they all boil down to one phrase: pay attention. Look around. Feel the machine. Understand the environment. The forklift is an extension of your body. If your body is in danger, so is it. If it's in danger, you are the first victim. Keep the forks low. Keep your eyes open. Keep your respect for physics. The 4-ton monster can be your greatest ally or your worst nightmare. It all depends on who's holding the wheel. Be the master of your machine, not the slave of your haste. Thank you for listening. The world needs you whole. Tomorrow depends on the decisions you make today, in the next 5 minutes, on the next pallet, on the next turn. Choose the right path. Choose the path of the standard. Choose life. Until the next video, where we'll dive into another dark secret of industrial safety that no one dares to talk about. Stay safe.